All right, everybody, welcome to Geek Fandom and Social Media. Today, our guests are Jonathan Tavss and Joe Oskoui. A quick little bit about me. I've been working in digital and social media for over 20 years, and I'm a lifelong geek. And I am trying to bring geeks and brands together and talk here on Blab about how we can do a better job about communicating and building relationships and communities with the geek fandom. So I'm going to pass it over to Jonathan right away so he can introduce himself.
So Jonathan Tavss, I've been working for the past 20 plus years doing storytelling, connecting fans with content with fans, brands with audiences of all kinds. And I've had the fortune of working on a number of really great fandom titles, from Simpsons Simpsons, a bunch of Marvel product like X-Men, and luckily some titles that very quickly generated a fandom, such as Avatar, or even I would say with all the releases of Minority Report that I've marketed. And that's enough about me. I feel like a Brady Bunch.
Yeah, and it's a mirror image. So if I point this way, yeah, there you go.
That's Jonathan, right? Yeah.
The downward.
That's me.
So Joe.
I know you're always pointing down at Joe.
Okay, very
nice.
Good. So I'm Jonathan. You're done? Okay. So I'm Joe Oskoui. I'm the co-founder and director of UX at O&O. And I've been working for over 15 years also in digital, ranging from anywhere from advertising, but also going all the way to product development and social. And we've been working on a lot of campaigns, especially in entertainment.
And let's be honest, you're a geek too.
That's true, yeah.
And a definite development geek with apps and everything else. So you married the two worlds. So what I want to jump into right away, and Moses was saying, Jonathan, your audio is still low. So you actually were coming in clearer without the headset. The only problem is we get feedback sometimes with that.
I can't hear you without the headset.
Okay.
I will just talk really loud.
You're good at projecting, so you can do that. What I'd like to do is jump into some of the experiences we've had in the past, and then what I want to do is move into some of the shows and films that are coming out right now and ask if there are current campaigns that you think are doing a better job about reaching the audience or a bad job of tapping into that geek fandom. So, Jonathan, what I'd love to do is talk to you a little bit specifically about Bond and Avatar. And Joe, you can come in with that one too, because we've worked together on that for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So the Bond franchise in particular was a touchy and I think tough nut to crack. You and I jumped into that right when social in 2007 was becoming a very big thing. And we had to work with multiple masters, Sony, MGM, Fox, Eon, all of the Bond shareholders, essentially. So what was it that you were working on from a storytelling standpoint to reach those fans and reassure them that this wasn't going to be just another marketing push?
Well, I think it's evolved, and really, you look at just the short 8 years since we were really doing a huge catalog campaign along with the re-upping with a new Bond, Daniel Craig, with Casino Royale, and just generating that whole interest. And there were a lot of people that weren't really clear on what that social element was.
Right.
And more importantly, how much should we allow the audience to participate? And I do believe that brands are still having that challenge of determining how much they want to allow the audience to participate. My belief is that they should be allowed to participate very strongly. They should be given the tools to do so.
Right.
And ultimately, my belief is that with the right fan base, with the right audience, and the proper relationship between property and product, whatever, and audience, that the audience is going to also be helping to make sure that the brand is, that sensibility is maintained and trolls aren't taking over the world and making it.
And then to speak to that, because Joe, a lot of what we developed in some of the apps that we've developed extended the story. So part of my drum beating, and I tend to soapbox about it, is that the relationship, spending the time with the fans, And I think apps allow us to do a much better job with that. I think social allows us to develop that relationship. But of course, what happens is there's that one-off where the brand, and look, working with Fox for years and years and years, we saw it happen. It's the push, 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 let's develop the relationship, and then it drops off a cliff. So some of what you've worked on, Joe, with the apps is it allows you to extend that relationship with that fan far beyond that initial theatrical release or TV show premiere season. So right. What have you seen that you think works the best with the apps and the things that we can do socially to keep that connection, not just technologically, but to build the relationship?
Right. I think on one of the projects we worked together, Alien Anthology desktop application, I thought that was a good example where we started off relatively early, but then we allowed users to continue to engage with right. the product or with the brand in this case, and get more information. I believe we had a lot of images or sketches from Ridley Scott and so on, right?
Right.
And we would push the content out continuously, right? And so we were able to open a stream basically right there on the desktop of the user, right? And
it's so funny. I completely forgot that we did that.
Well, I came across it only a few days ago, looking at a portfolio, and I was like, "Wow, that would have been awesome!" And that was really good, actually.
I love that one. And Jonathan, the cool thing that with that one that we had so much fun with, and Joe, is that the database that they had built as part of the content that we could draft off of, that extra content, that extension of the story. Again, it comes back to that over and over again. I know, Jonathan, that's something that you believe in. That I think what happens is that it allows you to develop this whole other conversation with the fan, aside from what that immediate brand pushes.
Right.
And it gives it context and depth that me as a geek, as a fan, I love that you brought that up. Now I'm going to go look it up. Is it still live? Or did Fox archive it?
What, the Alien? Yeah,
the Alien Anthology.
I think no, I haven't seen it. No.
But to add to your point, it also brings in the authenticity.
Right.
Right, by allowing those offshoots of communication, and even more so, providing the opportunity for fans to connect with each other.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. That they have to be able to feel that they're free to have those conversations with each other, have the dialogue, have the arguments, which is natural as part of the fan base for any of these titles. And all of our experience is primarily in entertainment. Right. And I think that fandom, when I speak of geek fandom, obviously spreads across, and all of us have experience in these different areas with theatrical films, with books, with comics, with video games, with home entertainment. But I do think that a lot of what we've learned, which is, I think, a much more deep dive with a fan base, could be applied across brands and vertical industries. I don't think that it's necessarily just pertinent to the entertainment industry.
Right.
But what would be, for each of you, a key aha moment like that you had over the past 10 years that you were working with a fan base where you went, oh my God, we made that connection?
Well, for me, I would have to say I was really happy and surprised by what we were able to do with Avatar and the Homeland campaign, which was a weird campaign because, as we all, for those that don't know, in entertainment, it's sort of hard because of the windows. You've got the theatrical window, then you've got the home ent window, then you've got the pay, which takes on so many different forms. Is it a direct TV cable pay to view? Is it a Netflix window for SVOD, which is subscription video on demand, et cetera, et cetera. So with Avatar, I was trying to push for the fact that, okay, theatrical, why don't you put some money into this? This is a franchise. They had done some things for the original theatrical release, but not a lot.
But remarkably, not a lot. And can you speak to a little bit of, because Joe, you worked a little bit on Avatar too, didn't you?
Yeah, we worked on 2 different applications, actually.
Yeah. Okay, so can both of you speak to the depth of the development tying into what you're about to say? That theatrical really, no offense if anybody sees this in the future to my theatrical friends, but they, I think, were felt that they had to hold back because they didn't exactly know. It was all brand new. And James Cameron and all of his production group are very hands-on. And I think they didn't get the opportunities that you did, Jonathan, to lead that and push the story.
Right. I mean, when we talk about fandom from scratch,
yeah,
you know, you and I had a Twitter going back and forth.
Right.
Like, bring me the fandom from scratch. I think Avatar really is that, because so the movie opened in December. We ended up putting the first release on Earth Day, April 22nd, and then the full director's thing at the end of November of that year. So that was our 10-month campaign. But by the end of December, there was already a lot of social buzz about people being depressed because they couldn't visit Pandora.
Right. So
with that, I knew I had already done something with Joe on another project where you could sort of insert yourself digitally. In the old case, in the one that we had already done, you took images of yourself and then you upload, and then you could see it later on a Blu-ray menu. And I said, Joe, let's make it real time using the camera, allow people to go to Pandora. And so that's where Pandorama came into play, where Joe's team, Joe has always been my go-to guy for the vision for the future. Like, this hasn't been done before.
Yeah, me too.
Sort of what the vision is, make it happen. And so all in on Avatar, they had, when we took the campaign over in about March, there were about 6.5 million followers on social. We don't
that's right.
Technology then to know whether there was duplication in our numbers, but in aggregate, it was 6.5 million. By the time we got to the end of my part of the campaign, which was the home net window from, let's say, March 1st of 2010 to December 1st of 2010, we had grown it to 20.5 million.
That's right. I forgot about that.
That is because we had many different ways for the fans to engage and really feel that they were a part of it.
But speak to the fact that you guys were there all the time, because I know Michelle worked really hard on that too. Right. Michelle Schneider, who couldn't come. Right, exactly.
And they were globally.
And they were there. Oh, that's right. It was a global campaign. But and each of the social managers, which this was the first time we ever at that level had done social community management, where there was replies back that the studio spent the time to actually reply back to fans. I know that you guys Alicia would be up till 3 a.m. actually replying back to fans. And that, I think, was a key turning point. Not that there weren't other campaigns, I'm sure, that we could talk about, but I know for us, that was a key turning point of, I get it.
That was the first time that, again, you could have a sustained campaign.
Right.
And you talk about franchise management.
Right.
And, you know, again, this is just 5 years ago, but the world has changed since then.
Right.
So that people are looking at audience development and franchise development in a different way than we were then.
Right.
And that constant communication. Some people are doing it well. Some people aren't. And I don't want to get into who's doing it well and who's not.
Right.
No, I would like to hear later some of your opinions on those. Not to call anybody out. Joe.
I would like to add to it that Avatar was very special insofar as Jonathan pointed out that we started. I mean, home entertainment basically kicked off March and all the way through December, right? That's extremely long, right? Obviously, 9 months.
And I had to communicate out to our international markets as early as November.
Right.
What we were going to do. So with the immersive trailer that we did.
Right.
So your pre-production was actually the year before.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there were a lot of pieces also. Avatar, a lot of that allowed users to actually, UGC, generate content, right? And I think there were many different pieces. We worked on one, but I know, Jonathan, you worked on several others, I believe, right?
I know Rob Pollux did something with the face.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And we also did, and tied into the Earth Day, we allowed you to plant trees,
right? Planting the trees.
And that gets into the integration, that it can't just be that we're living alone in a bubble of digital or social or apps or mobile.
Right.
And I know everybody says this, and that's what I'm trying to get to the heart of with our conversation. Is it's very easy for a fan to feel that the marketers are using us. So speaking as a fan,
right.
That it's very easy to look at titles and products that I'm not involved with, but that I love. And it's very interesting for me to look at how they try to reach me. Some of them do it from, I think, a very true intent, which means whoever's doing the management and the integration is probably a fan, or it comes across as magic marketing speak, and it's peppered with all the normal phrases that we've all used.
Right.
And I know that there's a fine line that we have to walk about selling whatever the product is in the brand and developing the content. But I believe that the best way to do that is to bring more people like yourselves into these campaigns who are yourselves fans, or certainly know how to engage and do the research to reach out to the people who are the fans and bring them onto it. And to speak to that, Joe, somewhat of what you guys have done, you immerse yourself into the research and the pre-production probably better than almost, Jonathan, wouldn't you say, except for maybe Rob Hollocks and Scott, that there's very few agencies that spend the time to do the research for what the brand is, what the project's going to be, than Joe. And I think that is a huge part of understanding your audience. And again, it seems cliched, but I don't think that there is a better example of that than Avatar. You guys spent a very long time. I mean, I think there are other ones out there right now for franchises. I think X-Men, Bond. I think Warner Brothers is doing a great job with Supergirl, for instance. They've done an amazing deep dive finding the right fans. But I think Avatar was a great example of integration, where you guys did a huge outreach offline as well. Right, Jonathan? It was the planting the trees.
Well, I was working with the folks that put on the big Earth Day thing on the mall in DC.
Mm-hmm.
So there was really a good connection to real world activity. Thinking now that the film just came out in December, so people didn't really know what it was before December. By Comic-Con in August of that, so what, 9 months later, after the movie came out, there were so many people that were dressed and painted blue, that were all like just celebrating Avatar. And to see a franchise blow up like that,
right,
or a fandom blow up like that, was, I think, part and parcel. It was the biggest selling movie of all time. We were going to sell a lot of product,
right, no matter what.
We sold, I believe, much more product than we would have because of all of the stuff, all the touch points that the audience had. Mm-hmm. And to say that we had the research into who the fans were, I think we were moving too quickly to do that deep research. What we did do was engage agencies that, much like you brought up, that were true geeks at heart.
Right.
Got it inherently. It wasn't like trying to teach a new language. I'm a fan of this. I get what I'm excited about.
Right.
Forward. I think there are other, like I worked very closely with Laura Hafs.
Oh, that's right.
Squared, doing a lot of the research. She has a media psychology background, which is really great when you can look at the data, social and also traffic, et cetera, other flashpoints to really build out what does the audience want. And when we talk about reaching fans and serving the fandom, it's based on what does the audience want. What's that audience-centric piece that I think a lot of brands don't do. It's all about, I need to sell my product. This is my feeling of what the product is. That's how I'm going to put it out there. The reality is, what does your audience want? And now deliver that. And that's where you're going to see the big growth.
Yeah, and I think Jonathan, or also Jenny, of course, when you mentioned, it should not be too much of a marketing push or not feel to the end user or to the fan that it's just marketing. It's a message that has to come across. I think you and I, we battled often trying to remove pack shots when or messages, and most of the time, I mean, those campaigns look or are resonating best in general when you don't have all those messages, all the release dates on it, and so on. And very often with the shareable media in particular, we try to always, tone that down as much as we can. I know we need to have legal on it and so on, but we're fighting for, that battle also for the end user, that
and it's serving many masters, right? And it's, as Moses is saying, the fans are more interested in the quality of the movie itself, which I think is a good point, because if the content is great, Jonathan, to your point about Avatar, it was going to sell a lot no matter what we did. But for instance, with some of the other ones that we had to do, like you said, Avatar was from scratch, but the theatrical had set the stage for us. I think some of the campaigns that we've done in the past, it was truly from scratch because you are working either on a franchise that hasn't had a new movie in a very long time, or it's a brand new franchise like Minority Report. And I think that a lot of what's happening with TV and comics, of course, is a lot of the people our age are in power and making decisions to greenlight content that we all like. It makes it a little bit easier to integrate. But if the story itself isn't strong, if the way they're telling the story and whatever we're selling on the TV show, the book, whatever, isn't strong, our job is an uphill battle. And to Moses's point, that it's null and void for us as marketers and content marketers if the movie's crap, or if the comic book or video game is not good. And at that point, what do you guys do to try to reach somebody and fans to convince them or to talk to them? Are you honest? Are you honest with your brand marketers? What do you do when that's the problem?
I think it's very clear what we do see happening now, for better or for worse, where with the fandom, if there's silence from the studio or from the filmmaker, it's usually not that good of a take. And I will bring it up. I was involved in the marketing of the first two Fantastic Fours, and now this third one came out, and there was silence about it. One thing that, way back in the day when we first did the first X-Men movie, there was a lot of, and this was in way early days of social platforms online. Bettina Sherrick, who was running global or international digital theatrical, was really smart because she didn't just listen to what the sentiment was. She was able to get involved in an authentic way.
Yeah.
So when everybody was like, "Why is Bryan Singer directing on a fight? Why is Bryan Singer?" And that was the biggest social rub. And the reality is, they were, because of Bettina having the team getting involved early,
right?
There was conversation, and now the X-Men fans praise the fact that Bryan got involved.
Well, and I think that that's something that's key to this, is that when you're on the theatrical side, sometimes even if we're seeing advance pieces of the property. So for instance, working on Slumdog Millionaire or Juno, we got to see advance drafts, early rough versions of it, but you still didn't get the power of it during that. And so we were crafting campaigns socially and with games and with apps on those that I'm not sure could have flown if the content hadn't ended up being as good as it was. Right. So a lot of times, I think for any brand in entertainment, it's a leap of faith. What you're trying to do is say, I trust this writer, I trust the producer and director, I've talked with them, we've spent time together, I believe in this project, and if the end product isn't as great as we thought it was, at least you can say to the fans, I truly did believe in this. I'm as bummed as you are that it didn't turn out as great.
Right.
But I truly believed that this was a great product. The other way I think that you can do this with fans, and this is what just pisses me off no end, is that they know if you're bullshitting them. Mm-hmm. So I know that. And I, not as a marketer, but as a fan, if someone's trying to pull one over on me. So just be honest as much as you can as a brand marketer. But for the social media team, my advice is always, please don't try to be disingenuous or try to make this something it's not. Moses just brought up Straight Outta Compton. I think they walked a very fine line. And I think some of the memes that were out there took away. I love the straight out of wherever you're from because it allowed fans mm-hmm. to put themselves in that place. But let's be honest, I, as a white woman, cannot be in that place. And so that was a bit jarring for me, from my point of view.
I get your point. I think that it got more people to pay attention to it. And I think what their intention was that we all come from somewhere. And I see what studio
yeah, exactly.
Straight Out of Bel Air just doesn't work. Yes, but if you're trying to evoke that we all come from somewhere, if that was the plan, so I put up the question: was the campaign strength solely on the Straight Out of question mark meme campaign, or was there something more?
I think it was the whole campaign, because I think a lot of what friends of mine who worked on it, I thought was great, was that it goes back to that integration that we were talking about. So everything was tied to the next. It was a domino effect. So the meme was part of the very, very end, right before it came out. They started so long ago. And of course, Dre and Ice Cube being involved in it, and his son, Ice Cube's son, being in it, was a huge part of it. They went to Baptist churches, they went to neighborhoods, they did YMCA, and the boys, all of the Big Brother, they did advanced screening. So they did a lot of integration, and every time they did that, they were personally on their social channels tweeting out about it and saying, check this out. That
it helps when you're an executive producer.
Exactly. Now, see, you know what? But that leads to, and I'd love to talk about this. Let's talk about talent being involved and the obstacles that we have with talent involvement, especially in things like when we're trying to develop an app and we can't get the voiceovers, or we're trying to develop a great social game or a social chat or a Twitter chat, and the person bails at the last minute. So let's talk a little bit about how important that talent interaction is with the fans.
Joe, I hope you don't mind if I...
No, go ahead. Take a lead.
I think as the talent is getting more understanding of how integrated everything is, whether it's the talent directly or their representatives, I think that's having a huge effect on this. I always maintain, and the biggest fault that I see in social around fan base is when social acts like a PR arm.
Oh God, yeah.
And it's the most frustrating thing to me, because it's a huge opportunity lost. It doesn't help any of us.
No.
At all.
And we're going to be the minority, I think, with people who eventually might be talking about this, because I think to some degree, the three of us, not to age anybody, are a bit old school when it comes to digital and social, because we've been around for 20 years in this. But I have a real issue with PR taking over or absorbing social, or social absorbing PR. They are radically different. PR is a one-to-many. It is not an interaction. It's not a storytelling. And social is about the relationship. Brian Fanzo says, think like a fan. And I love that, because that is such a normal thing to say. You'd think, well, of course, duh. But I don't think brands think like a fan. And PR doesn't think like a fan. And a lot of times your talent is thinking that way because they were in the movie. Or they wrote the book, or whatever.
So the only challenge therein is that there are a lot of people that are in the business that lost that sense of fanhood. And I'll use my brother as an example. My brother was, and probably still is, a sports fanatic.
Right.
But once he became an executive producer of sports in Miami,
right,
station there, and his whole life was about sports,
yeah,
he lost that excitement.
That's a good point.
So what we maybe need to do as audience development people and serving the fan is find a way to communicate exactly what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is help to extend that environment for success, not just success monetarily, but building the franchise. We need to be able to convey and express why this is important and how exciting it is in a way that it makes sense to the talent, other than, oh my God, I just finished this junket. I've got this press tour. I'm about to go off to do UK, Germany, whatever, yada, yada. Like, how does this fit? It's up to us. It's on us to be able to convey that. And I think that that's where we as a group of people might be a little deficient.
Right. We have also the challenge, I mean, obviously working a lot with home entertainment. I mean, working with the talents is very difficult if it was a theatrical release, right? Obviously, because they have moved on to other projects and they are not available very often, as you had pointed out. So I think, but it is a critical element. It does help, with social for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we have to be partners with PR. I'm not saying that we don't work with PR. And as Moses says, when that talent does interact and does it in a way that feels that they are committed to it, and we have to, Jonathan, to your point, we have to walk a I keep saying walk a fine line because it seems to be what we do a lot, of you don't want to have talent for talent's sake.
Right.
And that's hard for us because as the marketers, the people that have to sell the product, but also the people who have bought into this, you're excited if you get talent, but if they're just doing it because they've been told to, you got to find that sweet spot for them, with them. And that's where working with PR works, because that PR person has had experience with them probably, or can help you find it. Yeah, has the relationship. And again, it comes back to developing the relationship. I think that, Jonathan, you brought up earlier, and I think that this is true for everything. We work in such compressed timelines so many times, regardless of what the entertainment product is. And no matter how far in advance we are, a lot of times the talent isn't approached until so far late in the game.
Right.
There's been no development of a relationship. And just like we're saying, spend the time, develop the relationship with the fans, the same should be true on the back end. We should be developing that relationship with talent, with PR, again, integrating on whatever that project is, so that when they come to the table socially, cliched as it may be, it's authentic.
It comes down to vision. It comes down to having the vision and expressing what you're going to want to do, whether it's on a title by title basis or in general.
Right.
And I look at what we were trying to do when digital marketing was sort of off on its own.
Yeah.
Before we had social platforms.
Right.
Trying just write into the contract that we're going to be able to use
right.
these things online.
Right.
It's
in perpetuity on digital.
Yeah, whatever. But it's that setting those, communicating and setting those expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do get to a situation like we wanted to do a video around, Danny Trejo in
Machete. Yeah.
We wanted to do something. We wanted to use Danny if we could. So
right.
It's a matter of working with PR to say, this is what we're trying to do with original
right.
content video, with Machete Don't Text, and how do you incorporate that into the real
right.
world? And we were able to get Danny, and he was great. He came in,
and he loved it.
He loved it,
exactly.
Yeah. And so too often, I think it's because the talent doesn't even recognize or know, they're not told that the opportunities exist.
I agree. And I think that's the problem, Joe, a lot of times we had with the apps that you and I have developed, is that we were developing those apps or those pretty amazing games far in advance.
Mm-hmm.
We would be telling our PR team, but that wouldn't get to the talent in any good amount of time.
Yep.
Sometimes you and I even got to talk on Predators, for instance. We got to talk, and thank God we had a connection with Robert Rodriguez and with Alien Anthology, with some of the producers at the different production companies. By having that early experience, we got more content from them.
Right. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Very often it's talents are contacted in time, or in general, the teams don't collaborate as we would hope, or upstream at least. And then at the end, we end up not having enough time and not even launching products sometimes, right?
Oh, God.
I mean, so many good ones. Seriously, I mean, I think about, for example, Prometheus. There was an opportunity to work with, David, but and then you run out of time, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And that's too bad.
Yeah.
There's so many players. Like, Jenny, you started this off talking about Bond. We had an amazing experience. We had done so much development on, and then because of politics, we could never put it out. It would have been awesome.
It would have been amazing.
And I look at something that Joe had proposed on Predators. One of the things that I loved about Predators was that it could be any story-wise, extension story. Any one of us could be just pulled out of wherever we are and dropped in the world.
I know. We had so many good ideas for that.
Joe had proposed, chat roulette was really hot for that.
Oh my God. I know. I remember that.
What if we had the Predator, what if we played the Predator that sometimes you end up on Predator,
right?
And there's the extension of the experience, and being able to work deftly to be able to jump on those things that are really hot in the zeitgeist, I think is also very important, with the authenticity and the serving of the fan base. And a lot of times when you're talking about the larger franchises, the companies that are much more special about the franchise, it's very hard to be able to pull those things off with the agility that you need to.
It's true. And I think, Joe, for a lot of what we've done, and Jonathan, that of the more recent campaigns that we've all worked on, I think that the ones that were the most successful were the ones that, even if we had to hold the line and argue with brand or the studio, if we held our conversation with buy-in, like it wasn't an argument, but it was to convince them and to show them. We got buy-in on How I Met Your Mother, on Sons of Anarchy, on the strain. Now, the strain, I think, is a great example of a success and a failure in the same conversation. It was sorry, it's a
failure.
Yeah, failure.
Because listen, this is why, and you guys know how much heart and soul I put into that, and how much I love the product, I love the project, I love the guys at Dark Horse. I think that what FX is doing with the TV show is fantastic. I think they've done a great job of adapting it, and I think our social and our interactive site was a great idea. What we didn't get was full buy-in, and because we didn't get full buy-in, it didn't get the exposure that I think it deserved.
Right.
We didn't even get the exposure it deserved with the fan base, and that's what's tragic for me. And again, I'm subjective on this, but objectively, there are people who think it's award-winning from a design and an interactive point of view and a fan point of view. From a brand point of view and PR, I couldn't convince them because it was something that they hadn't seen before. So part of the problem for us is we always want to push the envelope. So perfect example is, I was just talking to somebody on the Blabaholics Facebook page, and I was saying I reached out to 40 plus friends and agencies and studio connections in the past couple of weeks to ask them, hey, what are you doing on Blab? What are you thinking about doing on Blab? I'm curious. I want to know. I think it'd be really interesting as a consultant to hear from the different walks of life. Of the 40 plus people that I've talked to, a handful had even looked at it. Now, okay, on the studio side, okay, fine. I get that. You are crammed. It's especially on my TV contacts. They're going into the fall series. But on the agency side, you got to be kidding me. It should be the thing that you are looking at right now. You should be talking to Sean and Furkan at Blab to talk about what are the opportunities for storytelling, for content extension. I can't think of a more fun platform. Periscope has a lot of good opportunities, Meerkat. Blab is probably, from a PR and a social standpoint, that perfect crossover for entertainment. And I was talking to friends at the comic book studios and some of the smaller independent ones even, and their individual authors and artists are using it, but the brand isn't. So
we all know that the brand is usually the last one. If we're talking about studios, we're talking about companies.
Yeah.
And this is what I found with my other clients outside of entertainment too. It's more specifically outside of entertainment because they are working much more closely and in a longer period with their product, is they are so close to the product day in and day out that they never get a chance to step back and see what's really out there.
Right.
And how their product is affecting their social, is affecting their fan base, is affecting whether it's growing it or stunting that growth. They just don't have the opportunity to see that. So, we're talking two extremes here. There's entertainment, which usually is on a window flight, so very short flights, and it's segmented. So theatrical deals with it, then they're out and it's home end and so forth. The same thing with, they don't have the time there, or it's the people that have the product and they're in too tight to the product.
Right. And that's the whole point. There has to be tighter collaboration between the different teams, right? You mentioned theatrical, right? And home entertainment. There seems to be a gap very often, right? And I don't know if it's a competitive relationship but it should be more collaborative, of course. And
it's a time and resource issue.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is, right? But even just getting assets sometimes, right? That should be easily available for us, right? So that can be sometimes a struggle by itself.
Right. Just the most basic of things.
Yes, you'd think so.
And it's sometimes finding the right person to ask.
Right.
And even for getting, I had troubles in Home End getting resources for Avatar because I had to go through the print creative person to be able to reach, and I couldn't just because of politics, I couldn't talk directly to the person.
I think on that one, for Avatar, we did get assets maybe 2 weeks before the release of the product. So we were working with, basically nothing. Right. Just technology, and then finally at the end getting the assets. But Avatar was special insofar as because it was 3D, because it was all computer generated.
Right.
Lots of it became, and I think that's one of the issues, especially with assets coming from now on forward. Actually, it's actually becoming more difficult because everything comes off computers, right? It's not just pictures anymore.
Right. But again, if people are thinking, oh, I'm creating this, why not use this for something else?
Right.
And Joe, what you did with Pandorama is a true testament to, if done right, if being authentic to what the story is, people are going to interact with it. The fact that people could take pictures of the different locations in Pandorama, we had hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of images taken.
Right.
We had examples of people, because every one of the images was timestamped.
Right.
We had one guy in Australia,
right,
a really macho guy, was taking, I'm sorry to use that term, macho guy, but he, it was stereotypically, you would not expect a person like that to spend an hour and 25 minutes interacting, and that we could track. That was just when he took his first photo to when he took his last photo.
Right.
Who knows how long he was in there and playing and experienced before and after the first.
Right. That he was not sharing images that he wasn't sharing. Yeah.
And I was just going to say to anybody that is still in the room, I think Moses and Paul, please jump on if you have something to contribute or want to talk in the conversation. It's an open seat. I think that brings it all back again to the storytelling, the extension of the story.
Yeah.
That it's of the more recent campaigns that we've worked on, for instance. So, Joe, some of the ones that we just worked on recently, Jonathan, ones that you were talking to me about, entertainment and not. I think that it all comes back to, you're going to connect with that fan socially and digitally.
Mm-hmm.
If you're bringing to the table something that extends the story, gives them access to something they wouldn't have otherwise, and makes them feel that they got that inside peek at something that they wouldn't have. And I think that I was shocked at some of what some of my friends at Dark Horse were doing, is that they were pushing a lot of content out, but they weren't having conversations at all. And look, God love Ob Driver, he kicks ass. He's the PR, he's the social, he's the guru, he does everything there. And it's not a big team. And to your point, Jonathan, it's about resources. And Ob does everything. He does Comic-Con, he does all of the talent and the interviews and the social, and he's got a very small team, which means they don't get a chance to engage with them at the level that I know they want to do. And it's such a missed opportunity. Right. It's such especially in that world, or video games with some of the recent, I think that Assassin's Creed tried to do a really good job with the most recent release. They did integrated campaigns. They had the behind the scenes parkour videos. They reached out to fans and had them do their own and upload those. But it fell short for two reasons. The game sucked. And then secondly, because they dropped off a cliff. Once the game was out, they stopped communicating with us. Right. And I think that was a huge misstep on their part.
I apologize. I have to jump.
Okay.
But I do want to say, I think I'm going to be on a crusade now to move us, when we're talking about audience development,
right,
and fan engagement. I'm on a crusade, I think, to move us away from storytelling to some other form, because telling to me isn't interactive enough.
Right.
So actually, don't even use the phrase. Like, let's make sure that it's more about engaging them and interacting with them.
It's a dialogue more.
I don't know what that word is. Like, instead of storytelling, story sharing, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Right.
But
can be both.
Right.
It could be, but fans, audiences, customers are just getting tired of getting told.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be shared with. They want to be a part of the conversation. You could
if they're true fans.
You can choose how active you want to be. You can't be passive. But if you feel like you're just being told and talked down to or whatever, which unfortunately we see too much of, or people are misusing the platforms that are available.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, especially the social platforms, obviously.
Right.
When I jump off. But I hope that you could end up hearing me better after the thing went on. Did you?
Well, you projected well.
Yeah, a little bit.
All right, sorry, I've been yelling over here. But anyways, thanks so much, guys. I will talk to you all later.
Thanks, JT.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye, babes. Hey, Moses, what's up?
That was interesting. I mean, I use Movie Moses because I'm basically Croatian, and my name is almost and last name is almost unpronounceable. and Moses is my nickname. So
I like it.
yeah. Thank you for allowing me. I mean, I work a little bit with the social media marketing in Croatia, actually, and I've never been on this side of the conversation when it comes to movies. So this is like, for me, this is kind of geeking out moment because I love movies, and even though I'm not a big guy on social, I mean, I love social media, but it's like, it's my work basically. So this is interesting to me. So.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sometimes what your work and your passion are can be two different things, right?
Oh, definitely. I agree. But it was a good conversation. So
oh, good. I'm glad. That's what we were here for. It's something that it's, as Joe knows, it's something that I've been moving more and more into so that I could truly marry the two parts of my life, because digital and social have been my life for 20 years and I love it. And being a geek is part of my life. It's inherent to who I am. Yeah. And so putting those two together is kind of a dream come true for me. So I've been very lucky. And I know, Joe, to a certain extent, it's true for you, because from a developer standpoint, from a research and development lab standpoint, and then the things that you like to geek out at, you've been able to start to marry those in the past year based on some of the stepping back and reassessing what you guys want to do as an agency.
Right. No, absolutely. It's also a very interesting journey, really. When I think about all the projects where we work together on, some of them with which we were not familiar from the very beginning, and as you pointed out, it requires research, and it's been very interesting, at the very least. And
what would be your favorite? What was something in the past recent campaigns that you felt challenged you? I don't care if it was one that we worked on together, but something.
No, I mean, one of the challenged, or you mean where I thought we did really, it was great collaborative effort.
Well, if collaborative would be what I'd be interested in, but it might have challenged you at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I like what we did for How I Met Your Mother. That's rather.
Can you talk specifically about that project or the specific thing you worked on?
Yeah,
sure. That's what interested me the most.
Yep. Go ahead, Joe.
Basically, it was a Tumblr sweepstakes, right? Okay. For which we created also not tons, but some memes. And basically, in the sweepstakes, that was what was it called? Property Vault, right?
Yeah, it was called the Property Vault.
Yeah, Property Vault, where users had a chance to actually win actual props from the TV show. And I think it ran for 5 weeks or something.
It ran actually, the whole campaign ran for 8 weeks. And what we did was we also had the prop master and the fashion designer who were award winning on How I Met Your Mother. So the Halloween costumes were really, really famous on the series.
Right. Yeah.
So this was developed as an end of series celebration just for the fans. So there was we were selling a complete set, but to be honest, it was more about celebrating the end of the series.
Right.
We were not pushed by the studio to push broadcast or the complete series. It was all about getting interviews and videos and photography of the props. And we gave away 42 props from the show, some of which were infamous, like the hot dog costume and things, and the Chewbacca costume. So those, we gave away those. And then we also gave away things like Barney's Bro Book. So we had some, and then the grand prize was the bar, McLaren's Bar. Course. And so that was a giveaway. And what we wanted to do, and that Joe and I worked really hard, and this is one of those where it was collaborative with the studio, with PR, with talent. We started a year and a half before it was going to launch. And what we were able to do was get, Joe, 20 some odd videos, behind the scenes videos. It was a lot.
Yeah.
For us, that was a lot. And then we got interviews with Craig Thomas and Carter Bays, who are the creators. And so they would go on their social and say, hey, today we're giving a flash sale. We're giving away the hot dog costume.
Yep.
So we had a lot of integration, not just with the Tumblr site itself, but the content that we were pushing for the fans was what they had asked for. They wanted to know.
Because I'm not familiar with that specific, because I was never a big I would watch it when I saw it on TV. I wasn't a big. How did you determine who was a fan and stuff like that? What was the criteria?
Well, an easy part of that was that we worked with the network who already had existing Facebook and Tumblr and blog and Twitter accounts. So because it was a 9-season show, it had developed over the past 9 years a very strong social following. So we went to that audience and asked them questions about a year in advance about what would you like to see? How would you like to celebrate the end of this series? What would be fun for you? And without fail, it was about the props. And then we asked the creators, what would they be up for? And they wanted to do the props. So the French horn, things like that, then the creators were interested in it. Now, for another one, as a good example.
I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, please go ahead.
Does the studio have any say in what you can give or not give away?
Yes.
And is there criteria, and are they very strict about what you can and cannot give away?
Yes, absolutely. So when you're working with the production company or the studio or both, or even if it's the comic book studios that I work with or video game, what happens is everybody has to buy in and approve what's going to be given away or used as sweepstakes, and even down to the assets that we use on the site have to be pre-approved. And talent has to approve. So that's where you really get into working with PR, making sure that you've got all of the stakeholders, the property stakeholders, involved from the very beginning.
Also working with legal, right?
Yeah, and it's in our case, because it was with 20th Century Fox, we had to work with legal right from the very beginning because we were doing something that hadn't been done before on Tumblr. Right. So it was dangerous in the sense that there could be issues.
Yeah, you talked about that earlier, about stretching the envelope, pushing the envelope.
Yeah.
Do you find that a production company or studio, whatever, is do you find that they are more close to something that is brand new?
Yes.
As opposed.
It depends on the studio sometimes. Joe, I would actually say it depends on the person that you get to that's a stakeholder. So for instance, Michael Brown over at MGM, who's head of MGM Home Entertainment, he's president over there. He's willing to listen to anything. I could go to him and say, this is what I want to do about Bond. I'm so excited about this. Our friend Kelly Orm, who's over there now, and she's running it, she will go to Michael and say, okay, I have this idea for Spectre and I can't wait to do this. And he'll walk through it. And then what he'll do is he'll say, okay, here's where I see the red flags. Here's where I see the problems that could happen.
Right.
But it's different for everybody.
Right. I mean, there are challenges. I mean, Jonathan mentioned earlier chat roulette, right? I mean, that was hot for just a few months, right?
Yeah.
And so when we saw an opportunity for Predators, right, to drop a user into such a situation, and we wanted to create a whole application all around an environment and handle it with all technology, there were, of course, people who were scared about it, right?
Okay. When it comes to Predators specifically, though, did you find it harder because the previous movies weren't all that popular?
Oh, on stateside and internationally, they're very popular. We had a huge fan base socially.
Right.
Okay.
And it's one of the reasons Robert Rodriguez got involved is because he's a fan. Mm-hmm. He's a total Predator alien geek. And so he got involved with us and said, and also he's very active technologically and socially. So he's got his own digital studio in Austin. So he was giving us content that we could work with from the very beginning. He was out ahead of us.
That's great.
I know, it's
I always
unusual.
Like to hear stuff like that. Yeah,
I know, it's unusual
because
great.
I actually work with the rap group, and the way they create content is almost non-existent. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So when you tell me that there is someone who is actually creating content and giving it to you before you even ask for it, to me that's always a good sign.
It's the holy grail.
Right.
It is the holy grail. Let's be honest, Joe and
but it's not the standard by any means, right?
No. No, it's not.
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
And what you're running into, Moses, is pretty much the norm. I mean, as Joe was saying earlier, getting assets and content, as a producer, that was kind of my whole life for a long time. Was just all I did was chase assets and chase content. And Joe would laugh because that would be my email. Yeah, I know you need content. I'm chasing. And then you'd need to get approval. So just because I got the content didn't mean that I was going to get approval. I could get through 4 out of the 5 approvers, and the 5th one would say, "Oops, sorry, I don't like it." I had that with of all things with Jimmy Smits on Sons of Anarchy. We did a tattoo story site to celebrate the end of the series, and I got all these amazing interviews. Jimmy Smits did a great interview talking about the tattoos of their character and how it furthered their story. And Kurt Sutter and the tattoo designers all talked about why they created certain tattoos for those episodes. And sometimes you'd see a tattoo show up suddenly because it was one that they had personally gotten. So it was a great way for us to end the series and get the fans involved, and fans uploaded their own tattoos. And Jimmy Smits was great, gave us all this stuff, and he had of his character, he had a wife beater shirt image and one without the wife beater where you could see, because his character had tattoos everywhere. And he was fine with it, but his manager literally said, "Ooh, I don't think that really fits Jimmy's image very well."
Okay,
and it was interesting because Jimmy didn't care. He thought it was cool. But his manager, and that's her job. I respect it. So we said, "Hey, no problem." And again, this was months in advance, so we had time to go look for other images, and we gave a bunch to choose from, and we found a great one that was a middle ground. But that's a perfect example of, we had it in the site review, and that was when they said, "Ooh, that didn't look like we thought it was going to look. We don't like it." So sometimes you could get the greatest content in the world, and just as you're about to push it live, somebody says, "Oh, that wasn't what I thought." You got to pull it.
Yeah.
That's half our life. So Moses, what are you working on right now? What are you doing? What do you like?
Well, I'm working. It's Movie Moses and One Guy's Take on Movies, because I want to like review movies and stuff like that. And it's basically, I do that on the weekends most of the time. Sometimes because I work a lot, and then I get home and I'll watch a movie, or I'll go see a movie.
Yeah.
Because I see at least like three movies every month at least.
Yeah.
Sometimes most, depends, because we have advantage now due to technology that to Croatia some movies come before they come out in US.
Right.
And Straight Outta Compton, for example, it didn't come out. Studios were saying like, we're not gonna release it in Croatia specifically, and that bugged me a lot. And I wasn't sure why, but it's like all of a sudden now they're gonna release it in Croatia in like next week, because there was an uproar. Yeah. And that's basically what I do. Is I work with this local rep group who wants to go, they want to go international, and I work a little bit with social media marketing in general, like for small businesses, and that's pretty much what I do. So
that's great. I love it. I love meeting somebody internationally. Joe and I have been working internationally for 2 decades.
Yeah.
Well, I am almost 3 decades old, so.
Oh, you're a baby. You're a baby. Well, Joe actually is.
If I didn't have any beard, I would look just like Joe.
You would look more like a baby.
Yeah.
Well, Joe, obviously, I mean, you can speak to this, is been international for his whole life. So Joe's from Germany. So
cool.
Yeah.
My aunt's been working in Germany for my whole life almost. So.
Oh, I see.
Well, guys, it's 12:15. I'm going to sign off. Okay. And thanks, Joe, so much for being part of this. I appreciate it. We want to do it again.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Moses,
lots of fun.
I love it. I'll be doing this weekly on Fridays. Probably next time I'm going to be doing evening ones. The only reason we did morning was Jonathan could only do this morning. So
okay, well, I subscribed and I'll probably watch replays or something just because due to time difference. So,
yeah, I don't think you need to be up at 4 a.m. watching it live.
Well, I may be up at 4 a.m,
but not for that reason. Yeah,
not for that reason, but you never know.
So, exactly. Well, happy Friday, everybody, and Joe, I will see you soon. I'm going to be up in LA.
Okay, very cool.
Enjoy your weekends.
Right. Okay.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
No problem. How do you sign out of here?
I can get you out.
Okay, cool.
Bye, Moses.